My country people, saluto. This one on our brother Dr. G. I don't come again this morning time with story about our revolution. The thing I want to talk about this morning, not just this whole conversation about mediation and negotiation, the whole famous Swiss process. I read a comment allegedly coming from the Swiss ambassador in Cameroon that describes us as a people who are disunited. Their leaders are not serious. They cannot even get themselves together. Nor can they be able to aspire towards holding a territory, controlling it. It'd be unfortunate because obviously our leaders, them are the one the way they don't give these people the possibility for talk this for look we interpret in that manner. But I feel it's a work in progress. I don't feel so we need for be discouraged by such a description. I want to say two things. I think one is that the assessment of how we conduct ourselves that has emboldened La République du Cameroun to proceed to the condemnation of our leaders, which in itself it's a gift in disguise because they have just elevated the status of our leaders to martyrs and of the category of the Mandelas, and we all know that great significant leaders of struggles and liberation movements have all been ex-convicts, have had to bear their stripes in terms of the time they spend in jail. So it has given us critical capital that we are supposed to maximize. Now, talking about the Swiss process, I think that we need to all come to terms with the fact that these people are very strategic. Our so-called international community, they're a group of people, they're a club of interests of people who oversee and watch over each other's interests, So when you see a process, you realize that there was a time when Thibault Nagy was going very on the offensive, putting pressure on the Biya regime, taking a very tough and hard stance, and then after a while he just mellowed down, And then before long, we see this whole Swiss process surface with the Swiss government wanting to demonstrate mediation. Now, the weakness of that process has been the following. Number one, they have not been able to, as a matter of fact or as a matter of principle, brought La République du Cameroun to demonstrate that they are willing participants to that process. For all we know, and this is something that has been a nudge in my throat that I've been wondering to myself where exactly this initiative is coming from. If you look at our international stakeholders, America has demonstrated a specific position, advocated it, pushed it to a certain point, and then relaxed. The French have been surprisingly very quiet. The British have been very forthright in terms of the stance that they have taken, whether it was at the UN Commission when they came in and talked about the advanced decentralization, whether it was within their own parliament. And then all of a sudden, the Swiss, which is a repository of Africa's wealth, with all of the money that's been taken from all over the world, they are the most conflicted player in this conflict to try and broker a mediation. Not only are they the preferred destination of Popol, the president of the Republic of Cameroon, but they have forged a very long, complicated, corrupt relationship with African despots. If it's only for the fact that they are the known legal banker of everything that is embezzled out of Africa, there's nothing else that gives them discredits them for being an honest broker. So I do not think that anything is going to come out of this process. And I think that we need to come to terms with the fact that we are progressively getting to a place where we are attaching more value to international negotiations and mediations at this stage than we should, because we cannot negotiate from a position of weakness. We need to negotiate from a position of strength. And when the people with whom we interact assess our strength, they are of the view that we are not sufficiently strong to be taken seriously. That's why they will play us around the way they're playing us. And unfortunately, a number of our leaders are playing into that. I find it so hard to understand why leaders like Akwanga, Bo Herbert, I don't even want to mention Sako. For me, let me not even start with him this morning, would find it convenient to board flights, fly to London, fly to Switzerland to go and talk with an NGO, and they would not think it's necessary to pick up the phone and talk to their other leaders and try and iron out their differences. These people who have been running around in this Swiss process are the ones that have made these international stakeholders look at us like clowns, like jokes, at the drop of a hat, at the possibility of they being able to put a bit of money on the table to fly them around. They're willing to jump on every plane and go and meet the white man. This this our black colonized mindset, because speaking to a white Swiss guy that is posing to be representing the Swiss government is easier than picking up your phone and resolving your differences with Cho Ayaba, or resolving your differences with whichever other leader you have a problem. This is a big inconvenience in this revolution. And I've just come this morning to tell our people that we should not bank on this process. The process is nowhere near where it has the ability to deliver for all the kind of goods that we want, because La République is not committed. Because La République has not been given the impression that it is losing the war. It has not been given the impression that it is bleeding. It has not been given the impression that it even needs to talk to our leaders. In fact, they've just shown us the middle finger by saying that in the middle of this Swiss process being used to buy time and to test the resolve our leaders and to test who has a price and what is his price, they have turned around and condemned the leaders. This is a wake-up call for us to realize that we are the only people that are going to take our destinies into our hands and run this process. And for me, the principle is very simple. And I'm of the view that the principle should be very simple. Number one, the right to self-determination is international law. Number two, the responsibility to protect our citizens. It's us and us alone. And I think that we should get to a place where we come to terms with the fact that we will never and never again confide the responsibility or the protection and the well-being of our people into the hands of a regime that is controlled from Yaoundé whatsoever. That should be clear. That should be the line of action. And that practically means that we should undertake steps towards the building of a disciplined Republican army, a disciplined national army that is going to take up the responsibility of protecting our people and protecting our citizens moving forward. That is the approach that we are supposed to adopt. Now, Comrade Cho Ayaba has put a proposal on the table. He has called it the contender force. I know that Comrade Sisiko and Comrade Dapni are working on getting a self-defense strategy that we're going to put on the table. I think that we should leave aside this destruction of Swiss mediated processes where people are wanting to pose with all the hypocrisy that it comes with as facilitators of a process that has neither head nor tail. The Swiss are in this process to safeguard their interests and the interests of their allies. And the Swiss have as allies the French, the British, and the Americans. The Swiss will never take the side of Ambazonia over the side of French. The Swiss would never take the side of Ambazonia over the side of American or British interests. So this game of interest that is being manipulated in the name of mediated process, I think that we're supposed to be wiser than that. And our leaders are supposed to go back to the drawing board and go and reassess their capacity to place demands when it comes to negotiating table, because to facilitate a dialogue and come to negotiation is not just to hold the meeting and then show up with your ideas and your demands. For whatever demand you put on the table, you need to have the ability to be able to enforce it. You should not just come and ask for a demand. You come and meet somebody that has a gun to your head and you are telling him that I want $5 million. He's going to laugh at you and then put a bullet through your skull because you are dumb, you are stupid, you don't approach negotiation like that. So the prerequisite for an effective negotiation that will give us the things that we want is to develop the capacity to become contenders. Is to develop the capacity to be viewed as people for whom if we do not negotiate with them, then this thing is not going to be resolved. I think we should move away from this mentality that is seeking to precipitate a premature end to this crisis without absolutely making sure that we have secured out of this whole process a minimum of the number of things that we have been clamoring for. We cannot push this plane, take it up to 40,000 feet, and then we start wondering why we're in the flight in the first place and start having change of heart and change of mind. The plane is already in the air. If we negotiate the exit poorly, we are going to make our situation way worse than it was before the start of this fight. We started it. The war was declared upon us. We're articulating issues of basic issues of the respect of our system, of our culture, and of our rights. They have taken it to another level. They have imposed the war upon us. We have the responsibility to defend homeland. We have the responsibility to rise to the occasion and make sure that we defend homeland. We must go back to the drawing board. We must revisit strategy. We must come back and get very clear terms of what we are working towards. As far as I'm concerned, the responsibility to defend and protect ourselves, we have taken it back and we would never give it back to any authority or any form of state that is governed or run out of Yaoundé. That should be clear. For that to become effective, we need to develop capacity, professionalize our defense groups, grant them to have exposure and training, increasingly get people, professionals to give them capacity to defend homeland. It should be clear, and we should make La République de Cameroon know, and all of these people who are facilitating negotiation on our behalf, that the guns that we have taken up, they have come to stay. We are not about to drop them because the day we drop them is the day we would have signed our death warrant. So that message should be clear and sent forth. As far as the interest of these strategic stakeholders are concerned, we should tell them that Ambazonia is open for business. Ambazonia is ready to do business. We understand that the world functions on the principles of interest and that we are ready to secure their interests, but we're going to secure them on negotiated terms. Obviously, we are not in a position to give them better deals than the Republic of Cameroon. We are working to get ourselves to that position because while they focus on their interests, we are focusing on our survival, and we are not going to trade their interests for our survival. So we need to find common ground somewhere along the way, where, because this is an issue of the survival of ourselves, of the generations, on our children, and we should articulate that and make it very clear to them that this is a survival issue. For all the other handlers and enablers and stakeholders within the Republic of Cameroon, the old federalists, the current federalists, and the new federalists who see this whole thing as a battle reposition of political career, I call them to have a rethink, because we have gone past the point where they are just fighting on issues of bad governance. I want Bala Abo to go back and listen to himself. A couple of years ago, he wasn't talking about issues of governance. He should not come to a place where he thinks like, because the intervention of the international community is pushing towards a regime change agenda, he should position himself to start talking with a forked tongue, like the tongue of a snake. He's the one that brought us into this thing. He's the one that articulated the issues of the Southern Cameroons. He should stick to that narrative. This new narrative of there's been bad governance and it can be changed, it's a betrayal of the cause. He did not bring us into this thing to leave us halfway, step aside, and let people who pay the ultimate price for him to start talking about bad governance. We did not start this fight because we're having bad governance with the Republic of Cameroon. It was an existential fight about an incomplete decolonization process. That should be the core of the narrative. The territory of the former British Southern Cameroons merits, like all other previously colonized territories, to be afforded the opportunity to decolonize itself and secure its independence. That it did not happen 60 years ago does not legitimize the falsehood that has been established in this long coexistence of the Republic of Cameroon. In legal terms, the fact that you have a woman in your house and you have lived with her for 50 years does not make you people automatically married. Yes, you may have developed a relationship. Yes, you may have even had children as part of the process. But the day you die, the family of that woman will remind you that you never paid bride price and you don't have a marriage certificate. That is the nature of our interaction with the Republic of Cameroon. There is not a bride price that was paid. There's no marriage certificate. The marriage certificate is the act of union that was never contracted. The bride price in place is a recognition of our right and our identity as an entity, as individual, as a nation, as a people that came into this marriage voluntarily. So we have been adopted. They have shackled us and taken us forcefully into a forced marriage and interacted with us, giving us children, made our wives pregnant, and they are trying to claim legitimacy over us. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Now, our people must come to terms with that. This is our reality. This is a generational fight. It is either we choose to fight this fight in our generation, or we choose to let our children to be slaves of these people for the next couple of years or centuries. But as a never again generation, we have taken up the responsibility to say that we are going to correct our history. I want to remind all of our leaders, Bo Herbert, Akwanga, Cho Ayaba, Milan, all of you guys must remember that this is the point of departure. This is where we started off, to say that there is an incomplete decolonization process and we must regain that whole right to self-determination, the possibility of defining our right and our path to development, the possibility of defining our entrance and status as a member of the international community, of the community of nations in the world. At the moment, La République is denying us that right, and we have all to this point been asking them to say, let us talk, come and listen to us. They are not interested. So I think that it is time for us to realize that it's important for us to re-strategize. We need to take back our liberty. We need to take back our right to development. We need to take back our right to the creation of our identity. We need to take back our right to protection. And I take this thing very seriously, not because I'm hungry for conflict. I take the right to protection extremely seriously, because the responsibility that we have confided to these people to be responsible for our protection, to establish systems and structures of authority over us, to govern us, they have shown us what they are capable of us. It's a definition of insanity to do the same thing all over and over again and expect different results. La République of Cameroon has demonstrated in the last 60 years what they are capable of. We cannot trust them. We do not trust them, and we have said that we are not going to trust them. So from this point onwards, I think that the premium that we place upon these negotiated processes, whether it be in Switzerland, whoever is facilitating the process, we should tone down on that and realize that Ambazonians, you are on your own. This is a responsibility that is squarely on your shoulders. You have to decide to either be slaves forever, or decide that you take upon the responsibility of the reconstruction of your identity. You're seizing back your responsibility to define your future, seizing by your responsibility to be the 55th or the 56th African Union state, and seizing by your responsibility to be recognized as a territory that was not properly decolonized at the point of its independence. It is coming 50 years later than it should have come. It's coming 60 years down the line, but it is better late than never, because we need to correct this thing now, so that our children will grow up and have their shoulders high and recognize themselves as members of an international community, of the community of nations who have corrected their history and regained their independence as citizens of the world. It is our generational mission to rise up and deliver Ambazonia to future generations. It's our generational mission to rise up and transform Ambazonia into the Singapore of West Africa. It's our generational mission. It is not going to be easy. It's not proven to be easy. We have been in it for 3 years. We have learned lots of lessons. Now it is our responsibility to be able to go back, re-strategize, and roll out a strategy that positions us and communicates both to our colonizers and our occupiers and the international community that we are resolute in what we are fighting for. We are resolute and learning from our mistakes and getting better organized to make sure that the message be clear, that there is no end in sight to this conflict that would leave an iota or a symbol of La République authority over our territory. That should be the message that should be clearly communicated to each and everyone with whom we are involved. We are claiming for the right to protect ourselves. That responsibility, La République has lost the privilege of doing that because of how they have treated this conflict and how they have treated for the last 60 years. We are claiming for the right to self-determination, the right to determine our own path to development. This is the essence. This is not a question about the form of the state. The form of the state is a cosmetic conversation. We are saying that as our people, we have a right to our destiny. Let's go back to the drawing board and let us re-strategize. God bless you. God bless the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. This fight is not going to be easy, but we have taken up the challenge, and with God's help, we are going to see the birth of a new nation in the Gulf of Guinea that is going to be representative of our African potential to be the Dubai and the Singapore in the Gulf of Guinea. It's our generational mission. Let us not betray it, so that future generations will take off this baton from where we have left it on and fight on. A luta continua. The battle goes on.